Hey guys, what's up? In this episode I like to show you the tools in Photoshop. What you have to know is I do not show you the practical application of each tool. This is something what I do in videos in the future. I like to give you an overview what kind of tools do we have in Photoshop. Enjoy! Alright guys, in this video tutorial I like to give you an overview about the tools in Photoshop. We are not talking about this part in Photoshop, we are not talking about this, we are talking about this part here, what you can see here. We have the tools here, and this video is more for kind of an overview about the tools. I don't like to show you the practical application of every tool. I will do more tutorials in the future about the tools here, because there are so many great tools inside what you can use for different kind of Photoshop techniques. So this video is more for giving you an overview what is here, what kind of tools, and what can you do with these tools. All right, so let's get started. The first part here, what you can see, is kind of selection tools. So these tools here are for moving something around, for picking up something, or for making a selection. So let's say you do not like to change the whole image. Maybe you like to change only the center of the image or a specific part. And right here you can work with selections. So tool what I use very often is the elliptical marquee tool. Every time, by the way, when you see on an icon a small arrow on the bottom right corner, you can click on it, hold it for a second, and you can see more options for this selection tool. So let's choose the elliptical marquee tool, and with this tool I can make a selection. This selection is normally a very hard selection. You can also change that selection. You can make that a little bit softer, a little bit feather the selection by typing in here amount of pixels. Well, it depends a little bit. Most of the time I make a selection, and after the selection I make this selection a little bit smoother by clicking on select, and I can change here the selection by modify, and then I can choose here feather. But many people use it in the settings here. They type in maybe 100 pixels or 200 pixels, and when you do some changes, then let's say we choose an adjustment layer for the levels, then you can see this selection is very soft here on the edges. All right, but most of the time I start with 0 pixels, and I'm more that guy who make this selection softer later on a mask. All right, but that's a different topic. So here are more selection tools. We have this very hard word for German, rectangular marquee tool. It's kind of a square format here. And we have also we have a lasso tool. With the lasso tool you can paint in the selection. So different kind of selection tools. We have a polygon lasso tool. By clicking here you can see. Give them a try, play around a little bit. The most important selection tool for me is the elliptical marquee tool, and this tool here, the quick selection tool. Maybe some of you guys already know the magic wand tool. I never use this because we have the quick selection tool, I think since Photoshop CS2 or 3, and with the quick selection tool you can paint on a part of the image, and you can see Photoshop is making the selection for you. Make sure you have here the button Auto Enhance. That gives you a little bit more or a little bit better edges. And this tool works fine if your image is in contrast with the background. Otherwise, this tool will get in trouble. But you can see it works fine here. Of course, not for the hair, but for clear edges where the model is in contrast to the background, you can create very nice selections. So I love this tool, and you will see this tool in some tutorials in the future for 100%, because I have a lot of techniques with this tool. So We have here the move tool. If you like to see the name of each tool, don't click on it, hold it here and for a second without moving, and then you can see here the name of this tool is the move tool. The move tool is something when you maybe have a selection and if you copy that on its own layer, then you can move that file around with the move tool. So we will need this tool later in future tutorials. Here is the crop tool. With the crop tool, you can change the format of your image. So if you don't like to have this part of the image, or if you like to have a square format, it's up to you. You can also set here some formats if you like to have it. Well, it's kind of a selection tool, but it's more for changing the format of the image. All right, I don't like to crop the image here. And a very interesting tool is the eyedropper tool. You can see there are more tutorials inside, a node tool, a ruler tool. I don't like to talk about it. I don't like to talk about everything. I like to show you the most important things. Otherwise, you will not have fun with Photoshop. Maybe I will handle the tools later in advanced tutorials, but for now it's very important that you know the eyedropper tool. With the eyedropper tool, you can choose a sample size and then you can pick up a color. You can see my foreground color here is white, but if I click here on that part of the image, you can see I can sample a foreground color. So I'm able to sample colors from an image. And you can choose here what kind of size do you like to sample. The eyedropper tool is also behind the brush tool. So if you are on the brush tool and if you press your Alt key, you can switch to the eyedropper tool. This is very important for me. I use that very often to sample the color and then I can paint with this color. Okay, but this makes no sense here on that image. But we are now working, or we are now at the brush tool. Behind the brush tool is the pencil tool. I never use the pencil tool, and I do never use the mixer brush tool or the color replacement tool. Well, mixer brush tool sometimes for a little bit creative effects, but for now it's okay that you know the brush tool. And with the brush tool you can change your settings, of course. You can click here on your brush settings and you will find hundreds of brushes here. You can also load some brushes inside, do some settings, some presets here, different kind of brushes. So many options, but for now, just be focused on this is the brush, and with the brush you can paint with the foreground color, all right? And it's kind of painting with the brush in real time. If you like to change your brush settings, many people are clicking here on the top icon and then they like to change with this way here. I don't like it. So what I use most of the time is my right click. If I right click on the image, I can change the size of my brush. You can see it here. And the hardness of the brush. It depends a little bit on what version do you use or working with in Photoshop. But I think it was with version CS5. If you press Control and Alt, and if you click on the image and if you move it to left to right, you can change the size, and up and down you can change the hardness. Control Alt on Mac, and on PC I think it's Alt and right click. You have to figure that out. But this is another way of changing the brush size. But most of the time, I don't know why, I'm using my right click, and you can see you can change it here as well. All right, this was the brush. We need the brush very often. You need the brush also if you are not painting. We have to use the brush later in future tutorials if you like to apply an effect, if you like to paint on a mask, but this is the content for tutorials in the future. We have here the retouching tools. So this part here are the retouching tools. This part here are more the tools for selections. And a very popular retouching tool is the spot healing brush tool and the healing brush tool. With the spot healing brush tool, you do not have to choose a source. Most of the time I'm using the healing brush tool. Let's say you like to retouch this out with the healing brush tool. You can press your Alt key, then you can click on that part, and then you have a sample. Well, this is your source. And if you don't press then your Alt key, and if you paint now here on that part, you can retouch this part out of the image. It's a very, very nice tool, and it's very similar to the clone stem tool. But with the clone stem tool, we have some difference to the healing brush tool. When you have the clone stem tool, and if you press your Alt key and click here, and if you paint here, then you will get exactly the same brightness and texture what you have here. So it's kind of cloning. But sometimes this is not good. The results are not so good. So if you choose maybe a darker part here, and if you like to paint, you can see it looks horrible. Well, the healing brush tool is a little bit different. I mean, it's the same workflow. You click here on the dark part, you press your Alt key, click here, then you do not press your Alt key, and you can paint on this part. But the healing brush tool do a combination of both, and you can see the result. Well, it's not perfect, but it's better. So I highly recommend the healing brush tool if you like to retouch something. There are in some ways, the clone stem tool is okay, it's necessary. If you have a good feeling, you can also work with the clone stem tool, but most of the beginners start with the clone stem tool, and this is something what I don't like. If you choose the spot healing brush, you do not have to press the Alt key. Just paint on something and wait what happens. Sometimes it's good, sometimes not. So I prefer to work with the healing brush tool. If you feel not so good with the healing brush tool, you can also work with the patch tool. It's kind of the same. You make a selection and you can move it to another space, and then you can see it's a very good result. So technically, the patch tool is the same, but it's a little bit different in kind of the workflow. With the patch tool, you can paint the selection, and with the healing brush tool, you have your round selection here. I will explain more to these tutorials, or more in these tutorials in the next videos, because there are much power behind this, and we need these tutorials for different kind of retouching techniques. We have more tools inside, but at the moment, the most important part is to know the healing brush tool, the clone stem tool, the patch tool. These are the most important tools. We have also here the history brush tool. Many beginners like to work with this. With the history brush tool, you can go in the past if you did something wrong. I don't like to explain it on this stage, maybe in future tutorials. We do not need the eraser tool. Beginners are working with the eraser tool. We try to learn, or we like to work with masks, and if you are working on a mask, we do not need the eraser tool. The gradients well, I love gradients, but most of the time when I apply gradients, I apply it in that way that I choose layer, new fill layer, gradient. So this is another tutorial. And we have very, very cool and funky tools here. So let's get started with these tools, with the blur tool. With the blur tool, you can paint in the blurriness. Is that the right English? I don't know. This is a tool what I use sometimes when I have to adjust the edges a little bit, when I extract the model from the background. Sometimes the edges are looking very sharp, and then sometimes I paint on it with the blur tool, or sometimes I paint on a mask with the blur tool. The sharpen tool is not bad. In older versions, the sharpen tool is horrible. But in newer versions, if you like to give something or an item or a special part in the image a little bit more attention, click here on protect detail, and then you can paint with this tool to make that a little bit sharper, or let's call it to bring a little bit more details inside. And this tool is not bad, but let's undo this. So, and the last one is the smudge tool. The smudge tool, I use it sometimes for creative effects. Let's say I like to make everything a little bit more, a little bit kind of a painterly effect. then you can choose here, let's choose a strength of 50%. And if you paint here, everything gets a little bit soft, and then, yeah, it looks a little bit more like a painting. There are many creative tutorials out there. The name of the tutorials are smudging. You can Google for it. But for now, we do not need the smudge tool, maybe in later tutorials. And the dodging and the burning tool. I love this tool. Well, with the dodge tool, you can brighten a part. So let's say you like to make this part a little bit brighter, then you can choose your dodge tool and you can change the range. In this case, I like to brighten up the highlights a little bit. And if you paint then with the dodge tool, you can see everything gets a little bit brighter. If you like to darken something, then you can choose your burn tool. Same here, you can choose your midtones and then you can darken this part if you like. The coolest thing, what I use very often, what many professionals do not know, is when you have the dodge tool, and let's say you like to dodge or you like to brighten the highlights here a little bit, and you like to darken not the highlights, the midtones. And if you like to darken the midtones a little bit, you don't have to switch to the burn tool. Just press your Alt key and then you are on the burn tool with the exactly same settings. Many people do not know this, but this is a very fast way to switch between the dodge and the burn tools. If you need exactly the same settings, midtones and maybe an exposure of 15%. All right, so let's go to the next tools, the pen tool. The pen tool, I think it's one of the most important tools in Photoshop if you like to make a selection or if you like to extract the model from the background. I will do a tutorial only about the pen tool in the future because, well, it's a very important tool. It's, for me, it's a selection tool. You can click here, and then you can make a selection by right-clicking in it, and then you can choose here Make Selection. It's a very good way. But we need a separate tutorial for the pen tool. We have some text effects. We can create some text here. You can type in here Kelvin. So this is a tool for creating text. And this is another tool for the pen tool. I don't use it very often. Well, I would say I never use this tool. It has something to do with the pen tool, but we do not need it right now. And here's a tool for creating different kind of shapes. So let's say you like to have a heart. You can make a shape and you can change then the color. And well, it's maybe a little bit more for design, but I have also here a few very cool techniques for lighting effects, what we can create with all the shape tools here, but for now we do not need it. Two tools are very important for me, but most of the time I use a shortcut for it. We have the hand tool. With the hand tool you can move the image around. This is very important for me. I do not work a lot with shortcuts, but in this case the space bar. If you have the space bar, you do not have to switch on the hand tool. Let's say we are on the brush. We like to move the image around, so click on the space bar and move your image around. The same with the zoom tool. With the zoom tool, you can click on that. If you are on plus, you can click to zoom in. If you are on minus, you can zoom out. But in the latest Photoshop versions, you don't have to click here between plus and minus. You can press your Alt key for minus, zoom in plus. But if you're working, I think it was since Photoshop CS5, you can click and move to the right, to the left, click and hold, and it's a very fast way to zoom. And with your space bar, you can go around in your image here, and I love this. So these two tools are, yeah, you can also work with shortcuts. The hand tool is a space bar, and when I have to switch to this tool, I do not have a shortcut. I click on that and then I can zoom in and out. All right, we have more options here. We have the foreground color, we have the background color. We can switch these two by pressing D. We have black and white, and by pressing X, we can switch the foreground and the background color here. We will need this foreground background color in later tutorials when we are working on masks.
And we have here the quick mask mode. The quick mask mode is a very, very nice tool for painting in a selection. You can see it here with the red color. By switching back to the standard mode, we will have a selection. And this is the reason why I never choose the lasso tool. When I have to make a selection, I work with the quick mask mode or with the elliptical marquee tool or the quick selection tool. All right, that was the most important tools, or it was kind of an overview. And again, and I told you in this tutorial, I guess 10 or 20 times, sorry for this, but I will explain every tutorial in a separate video in a combination with a great technique. So don't be frustrated if you now on this stage only know what kind of tools do we have. You will see much more with these tools in the next tutorials. One more thing, whoa, Steve Jobs, one more thing. If you press your F button on the keyboard, you can switch in the full screen mode. And this is something what helped me a lot. Most of the time I work in the full screen mode. So every time when I open an image, I press the F key and then I can switch in the modes. You can see here, this is the icon. It's about the full screen mode, standard mode, and full screen mode with menu bar. This is the full screen mode when I'm retouching an image because I need my menu bar. All right. So I can't wait for the next tutorial. This was about the tools, an overview, and I hope you will like it.
Alright guys, this was the video where I showed you a quick overview, what kind of tools do we have, and I can't wait to record the next video for you. But to do this, I like to have 3,000 views for this video. So if this video will get 3,000 clicks, I will upload the next Photoshop tutorial. By the way, thank you so much for the support, and I appreciate every support, like sharing the video, recommending the video, or liking the video. And don't forget to subscribe my channel here if you don't like to miss the next videos. Thanks a lot guys, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.